So this is Apple's most powerful laptop, the M4 Max MacBook Pro. This thing costs $4,000 on Apple's website, and to be honest, for working, it's actually worth every single penny. But I always wondered, can this $4,000 laptop actually game? Well, I tested it and the results are not what I was expecting at all. Now, in terms of specs, this laptop has the M4 Max chip, the most powerful Apple currently offers. It's got a 16-core CPU, 12 performance cores, and 4 efficiency cores, and a 40-core GPU, and 48GB of LPDDR5X unified memory. Now, we also need a baseline if we're gonna test this laptop, just to see where it sits at, and for that we're gonna use my main gaming rig. It's got an Intel i9-14900K, an RTX 4080 Super, and 64GB of DDR4 RAMs. It's basically a powerhouse, though if I'm being honest, it's a little dusty. I haven't used it much because I'm in the middle of building a new rig, but if you calculate the retail price of these components when they were brand new and the inflated price I paid for the GPU, it comes out between $3,000 and $3,500. As for the monitor for the PC, I'm using this ultra budget 32-inch 1440p panel from LG UltraGear. It's got 180Hz and 1 millisecond response time. Not the best, but it will do the job for now. Now, before we jump into any game, I wanted to do some benchmarks. And for this, I used 3D Mark, a very popular benchmarking tool out there. The first test was the Steel Nomad, which is a non-ray tracing benchmark for high-end gaming PCs. The MacBook scored above 3700, averaging 37 FPS in 4K. This test was done when the laptop was disconnected from the power source. Then I plugged it in. This time the test came out slightly worse, just shy of 3700, averaging again 37 FPS in 4K. This was shocking. I mean, a normal gaming laptop could never reach the same performance unplugged. Like, that's insane. So from here on out, all the MacBook tests were done plugged in, just to keep everything consistent. The gaming PC, however, scored above 6400, with an average of 64 FPS in 4K, almost 3000 more than the MacBook. I mean, I was expecting it to be more powerful, but not with this much. We are talking about almost the same $4,000 here. Then I did a custom Steel Nomad test at 1440p resolution as well, and MacBook scored on average 68 FPS, whereas the PC an average 122 FPS. Next up was the ray tracing test. I ran a quick benchmark on the MacBook only with the lightweight Solar Bay test, which is made to test lightweight ray tracing performance. And the reason why I did this only on the MacBook is because I was honestly expecting it to struggle. But to my surprise, it pulled a staggering 119 average FPS in 4K and 239 FPS in 1440p. Wow, okay, now it's getting serious. Now, because this test was such a success for the MacBook, I then moved on to the Extreme Solar Bay test, which is a heavy ray tracing test for high-end gaming PCs. And the MacBook scored 40 average FPS in 4K, and the gaming PC scored 81 average FPS. So here the gaming PC has double the performance of the MacBook. It's not looking good for the MacBook, I'm gonna be honest. Now, benchmarks are one thing, but how does the MacBook actually handle games? And quick note here, none of the games which I'll show you here has frame gen or upscaling enabled. Since we are measuring raw hardware power, this is really important. So no DLSS, no FSR, no nothing. The problem is there are not that many games for MacBooks. Roughly a third of my Steam library wasn't compatible on the Mac. So I chose 5 games that do work. And I know there are other ways to make Windows games compatible with Mac, and it has different workarounds, but I wanted to see how the base experience is without any fiddling around. So, Balatro, a small, lightweight game, few megabytes in fact, runs on basically anything, but somehow the Mac struggled. Mac has this weird resolution, so I can't set it to exactly 4K or 1440p. So at near 4K resolution, it only pulled 40 to 50 FPS. VSync disabled, of course. My PC in 1440p, since I only have a 1440p monitor, that's the max I can set it, was above 700 FPS. The difference here is crazy. I was expecting the MacBook getting Balatro above 3-digit numbers, but I guess I was wrong. Next, Dave the Diver. also a lightweight game to run. Turns out this game is probably locked at 60 FPS because the MacBook in almost 1440p was getting around 53 FPS and my gaming PC in 1440p around 55-60 FPS. However, the MacBook was noticeably stuttering. The only way I can describe this, in every 5 seconds or so, there was a micro stutter in the game. Like, it wasn't a smooth experience at all. It is what it is. On to the next one. Outlast. Now this was the most interesting and disappointing at the same time. This game came out in 2013. You'd expect this game to fly on the MacBook. Well, not really. In almost 1440p, it only pulled 20 to 22 FPS, sometimes dipping as low as 9 FPS. And no matter what graphic settings I used, it didn't have any effect on the performance. Mind you, I played Outlast when I was a kid on literal toaster laptops, so the MacBook has no excuse here. This was so disappointing that I didn't even want to compare this to my PC. So yeah, Outlast, 22 FPS. Then Resident Evil 4 Remake. Even though the Mac supports this game, my Steam version just wasn't available for some reason, so I went on the App Store and downloaded the demo. All said and done, one problem though, this was the error message I received when I booted into the game. iCloud is not currently available. So you tell me, for one, my Steam version is not available on Mac, cause why not? And two, a single player game needs iCloud to run. Personally, I'm not a fan of iCloud, I have it disabled, but then I guess I won't play Resident Evil 4 Remake. Well, whatever, maybe Cyberpunk will be better. Well, Cyberpunk kept crashing when I wanted to load into my saves. According to somebody on the internet, I have cleared the preferences folder on the Mac, and this actually did the trick. I was able to finally load into the game. We are using the high preset graphic settings, with the only exception being the field of view is turned up to 100 and motion blur disabled. At near 1440p resolution, the MacBook was getting 59 average FPS, with ray tracing enabled, 17 average FPS, and with path tracing enabled, 9.8 average FPS. The gaming PC, however, was pulling, with the same high settings, 118 average FPS, with ray tracing 63 average FPS, and with path tracing 35 average FPS. Cyberpunk without any ray tracing on the Mac actually feels playable. The FPS isn't as stable, but at least it's playable. However, introducing ray tracing or even path tracing will impact input lag. With path tracing enabled, it had a visually noticeable input lag. Like, it's almost a full second of delay from when you press a button and when it shows up on the screen. And obviously with 10 FPS and path tracing isn't really playable. But on a positive note, the MacBook's fans have handled all these games and tests like a champ. The FPS might not be as good, but the fan noise actually was incredibly low compared to other devices. For example, the fans on the MacBook Pro rarely kick in when I'm editing, and when I tried Cyberpunk with path tracing, it was still at a manageable level. So for reference, my ROG Ally X gets way louder when I'm playing games. However, for $4,000, I could build at least 2 or 3 PCs that would perform better in any of these games we tested today, and even outperform the M4 Max MacBook Pro, in gaming of course. I think the tests today just show how different each device can be from one another. This wasn't a MacBook versus gaming PC video, because I was expecting roughly these results. And although the MacBook might not be the best choice for gaming, because let's be honest, who buys a MacBook for just gaming, but for productivity and working, it's hands down the best machine I've had out of all PCs that I own so far. It's easy to bring it with you while traveling and incredibly powerful in creative apps. Without a question, for working I would always choose a Mac, but for gaming, PC still remains king.